After 25 years in the tax and accounting space and having worked with thousands of firm owners, staff, and vendors, what I know is that this profession is filled with hidden synergies and immense opportunities that sometimes just require an introduction. So today, we're talking about R&D credits as one of the biggest untapped revenue streams, but also an essential service to many clients. And here to do that with me is my new friend, colleague, and founder and partner at Insight R&D, Jake Satterley. So Jake, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, and we're just going to dig right in. So I'll give a little bit of background. I was a partner in a coaching organization called Rootworks, and we talked about R&D credits a lot. And the reaction we always got from our members, it was always like this immediate feeling of realization for two reasons. They're thinking, oh my gosh, that's a new revenue stream I didn't think about. And it's a service that clients need, because what client doesn't like you to come to them and say, hey, there's a boatload of money over here that we can get you that you didn't even know about. So let's just jump a little bit into that's the reason that you and I partnered. We want to uncover these synergies. We want to put the right people together to make the profession even better and to move it forward. So for firms that don't currently offer R&D services, how do you describe what Insight R&D does, like in a sentence or two?
Yeah, we're owned and operated by CPAs, so we try to be just a seamless partner with the CPA firm to allow their clients to utilize R&D credit and, the firms to be able to provide that with just a seamless handoff.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great answer. Thank you. I know why it makes sense for most firms to do R&D credits and or to outsource it, rather than build that capability in-house, because what I know about it's incredibly complex. Do you believe that? Do you think it makes more sense for firms to outsource R&D?
Yes, I mean, the reality with, the R&D credit, it's not taught in school. It's not taught in your CPA exam. So it's an extremely niche specialized area that unless, you've spent years doing the actual credits, it's really hard to build that department from scratch. So that's
Yeah.
oftentimes why we see, especially the small to medium-sized firms, they often have to outsource to somebody who all they do all day is just R&D credits.
Yes, and a lot of so again, I've talked to thousands of firm owners and staff over my career, and what I always got back was that's too complex for us to take on. Like there's a lot of money out
Yeah.
there and it's a needed service, but it's so complex. So I think some of them did outsource, but I think more of them maybe just ran past the opportunity because they didn't want to deal with the complexity. And I'm sure you hear that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of like a lack of understanding around the credit, whether that
Yeah.
be the audit risk, who qualifies, what qualifies. And I think, the biggest point is, it's worth always a conversation looking into it for your clients because it's not like a pass or fail credit. It's not, hey, every single thing they do is R&D, so let's get a credit, or hey, they don't do any R&D. There's usually a happy medium that people just don't take the time to explore.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a nice segue into the value for CPA firms because I see immense value. I've seen value over the years for the firms that I worked with that either took on R&D credit work or they outsourced it. Their clients were so happy. I mean, man, it really makes them like a hero. Here's $500,000 in RD credits that you didn't know that you had. So, what are the top two or three ways your R&D credit work makes a CPA firm look like a hero to its clients, business clients?
I mean, from my experience, being on the other side of it from working at in small to medium firms for the last decade of my career, anything that you could provide a solution to your clients, whether that be you or indirectly, it's always about adding value, especially nowadays. Like it's a very competitive market. There's a lot of CPA firms out there. There's a lot
Mhm.
of, people in the industry that are desperately fighting for the same kind of boat of work. So if you can kind of differentiate yourself and say, hey, you know, we may not do the R&D credit in house, but it shows that you're thinking of them. Because again, like the biggest thing as a CPA, what I never wanted was one of my clients to come to me and say, "Hey, I heard this at a networking group. I heard this
Yes.
at this webinar. You know, my buddy owns a manufacturing company. He saved 300 grand. Why did you not bring this up to me?"
Yeah. Yeah. Be proactive other than
Yes,
reactive. The last thing
yes,
you want are your clients coming to you and saying, hey, I heard about this R&D credit. Why don't I
yep.
have a couple hundred grand coming to me? Oh, for sure. Definitely. I've heard that before too. So I also know firms well enough, firm owners especially, to know that their first instinct when bringing on a new service is they don't want to overload their team. So, how does partnering with Insight R&D help firms expand this value add service, but without burning out team members?
Yeah, so we try to make it as like an easy process as possible for the CPA firm. So, they can be involved as much as they want to, but honestly, all they really need to do is do like an email introduction to set up the meeting, and then our team can take it from start to finish. And then we encourage the CPA to be involved in the process because at the end of the day, the CPA is the one that's going to be signing the tax return that has the R&D credit. So
Yeah,
we want to make sure that like we're working in collaboration with the CPA firm.
right. So you're never not in communication with a CPA
Yeah.
firm, but at the same time, it's a fairly simple handoff for you to do the work for their client.
Yes. Yeah, we do everything from start to finish, all the documentation, all the support, all the information gathering, and then we
Yeah.
basically just bring them in when we ask specific client questions and then kind of want to make sure we factor it into their overall tax plan. So if they're getting a $400,000 R&D credit, we want to make sure that, we're keeping in mind what else is part of their tax plan.
Yeah. I think real world examples always speak volumes. So do you have a simple example of a client that was clearly doing qualifying work, but had no idea that they were eligible for the R&D credit?
Yeah, we had a new client that they're building custom, train engines, and they're doing about $15 million of revenue. And they've been in business since the 70s, so have been doing R&D since inception. And for whatever reason, it was just never really brought to their attention. I think the name R&D, people think of, I always say like it's lab coats are, Apple making a new iPhone. That's just simply not the case.
Yeah,
So, for that situation, they received like over a $500,000 R&D credit, and that credit is every single year. So they're able to, have a substantial tax credit, for the foreseeable future.
that's awesome. I bet they were so happy.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it's really nice. Yeah, the CPA firm. Usually we're only the bad guy. So at least with the R&D credit, you finally can have a nice win.
Yeah, be the hero. Be the
Yes.
hero. That's right. And it is a relationship based profession. So the more we can do for our clients, the more
Yep.
we can care for our clients, the better. The stickier the service, the longer the loyalty. You get all the good stuff. You just get all the good stuff.
Yeah, if
Um,
you find somebody the R&D credit, that's another thing with like client protection for their own CPA firm. Like if you save somebody $400,000 by
yeah,
introducing them to the R&D credit, you're most likely going to have a client for life.
absolutely. I'm going to take a time out because I have to blow my nose. And I could cut away, but I'm not going to do that. You can take a drink. Ever since I had COVID, I have just basically a runny nose all the time. So annoying. All right. So before I ask the question, just so you're aware, you probably have it up in front of you. Process and workload is the next area.
Yep.
You sort of already answered some of this about staying in communication
Yeah,
and
I can like do
collaborating.
like I can like detail it though, like basically like, hey, we have a kickoff call
Okay.
with the client to like learn more about their business,
Okay.
explain the
All right.
R&D
So
credit. Yep.
don't have to repeat yourself. I'll just jump into that so you can give the
Yep.
detail. All right. Break for edit. So, Jake, I want to talk about process and workload a little bit more, dig in a little bit deeper. You answered this a little bit, but can you walk us through what happens after a CPA firm makes an introduction to you to Insight R&D? And how do you handle that and what stays with the firm?
So essentially what we do is we schedule just a kickoff call, and either the CPA can be on that or just, myself and my team. And what that really is that serves as kind of like the bridge between, hey, let's learn more about the client, their company, what qualifying activities are, because obviously, we hear from the CPA what the client does. They think that they qualify. Of course, everybody has a website which details what they do, but it's really better to, especially with something like this, to get in the nitty gritty, to hear it from the client directly of here's what we're doing on a day in, day out basis. And then also we want to explain, hey, what is the R&D credit? What is the process? What are you doing? Because the biggest thing that I hear is, well, we don't want to change how we're doing our day-to-day operations, even if we can get a substantial credit, and you don't have to do that. So all the documentation, all the work is on our end. So we just
Yeah.
send basically a simple information request, and then we kind of go from there. So then after we get all the information requests, we kind of build out like an initial credit model, and we review that with the client and the CPA saying, hey, based on the information we have, based on our initial conversation, we think your credit's going to be X dollars. Do you want to go forward? And then at that point, we would usually do another visit, to either an on-site visit or just another call. And then we'd actually do like what's called like project documentation. So that's where we'd actually get into, hey, my example earlier with the train engine. Hey, they hired us to build this train engine. It didn't work. The blueprints weren't matching the design team. Hey, we had to figure out how we had, make this a more efficient process. We had to do this in a way to where we've never done this before. So the first 10 times we did it was considered a prototype, which is considered like a qualified activity. So after we have that documentation, then we go into the actual report writing and then issue the final report and then the actual tax forms to the CPA.
So you spend a lot of upfront time with the client in basically what I'll call a discovery phase, which you have to. How do you know how to service a client if you don't spend time talking to them? So I like that the intimacy, the personalization of the upfront introduction, and firms would love that too because they have a relationship with the
Yeah.
client. They want to make sure whoever they're introducing them to has a positive relationship with them as well. So I think that's brilliant. That's
Yeah, and we
brilliant.
and we don't charge anything unless we
I was going to
determine that
ask
you're
that.
qualifying
Yeah.
their credit. So yeah, basically we do almost 75% of the work up front. So we basically do the information request, do the discovery call, build out the initial credit and say, hey, the credit's going to be, let's say $100,000, and our fees are just 15% of whatever the gross credit is across the board. So that way there's no reason, worst case scenario, it's 30 minutes of your time in a discovery call.
I can't imagine anyone says, "No, I don't want $100,000."
You'd be surprised.
Right? Right.
Sometimes.
Really? We'll
Yeah.
have to get into that on another show. Um, Another big question. You guys are doing all the work in the background. How do you keep the CPA at the center of the relationship while your team does the R&D work?
So essentially what we're doing is I try to check in with the CPA every step of the process saying, hey, you know, we are doing the kickoff call. Do you want to be on it? Hey, we're doing the credit. Here's the number. Hey, when do you plan to file the return? Because ideally, we'd like to do it in coordination with the CPA so we don't have to amend tax returns. So we say, hey, this return we'd like to file by June 1st. Okay, then we'll make sure we have the R&D credit to your team, a few weeks prior.
Oh,
And then
oh,
obviously,
nice.
the biggest thing is once we get like done with the study, we make sure that, they have a copy of the report that we write, they have a copy of all the numbers. We're on a call. We go usually with their like quality assurance team of making sure that everybody feels comfortable with the final numbers and how we got there and what our process was.
Cool. I mean, very thorough from start to back, it sounds
Yes.
like to me, which CPA firms love. They love
Yeah.
thoroughness, right? You
Yes.
guys are all CPAs, you speak the language. Um, what does the finished audit ready deliverable look like? And how does it support the firm if questions ever come up?
Yes. So what we deliver outside of the traditional, just the two-page tax form to the CPA to file is we actually make like an audit defense report. So that actually doesn't get sent to the IRS, but that's basically backup in case, God forbid, there ever was an audit. We have all the documentation to support, hey, this is why we think this client qualifies for a $350,000 credit. Here's all the wages. Here's the projects they're doing. Here's, the process improvement. Here's
Yeah.
all the details of the conversations we had. Here's all of our like kind of evidence for the credit, because obviously what happens is, as we all know, in anything in life, you do something and then 3 years later you're like, oh, I'll remember. It's like, well, no, you're not going to. So we basically like we treat every single R&D study as like, what if this gets audited? Let's make sure that we have everything in row. And usually when an audit comes, like we have this report that essentially is like, that's what the auditor is going to base the audit off, is this report that already is documented. So that way it doesn't fall on the CPA and it doesn't fall on the client. So like part of our 15% fees is like we handle the audit from start to finish as well.
So truly, you're taking care of everything for the firm, obviously, and the client.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about risk, compliance, and quality because we know these are three things at CPA firms. It's on their tongue every single day: risk, compliance, and quality.
Yeah.
What reassurances can you give firm leaders who are maybe worried about reputational risk, like when they refer R&D
Mhm.
work out?
I mean, I think that's like the biggest, like a common misconception is, yes, the R&D is such a large number where you're talking, 100 to 300, 400, $500,000 credits
Yeah.
like that. Kind of people think that like instantly raises a red flag, and that's like simply not true. So like if you own a manufacturing company and you file for the R&D credit, that doesn't mean that in the IRS system you're like automatically going to get audited because you applied for a credit. If your return was audited, yes, they probably would look into the R&D credit because it's one of the larger numbers on your tax return, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because you did this, like X doesn't equal Y, where, oh, it's going to pull to an audit. That's not the case.
Yeah.
And then, and again, in terms of compliance, like we always err on the side of caution. Like almost every single time, like when we go into a study, like if there's like a gray area of like, hey, does this qualify or not qualify? What I always tell clients, I'm like, there's no reason to like push the envelope. Like this is already a substantial savings that
Yeah.
you weren't doing. Like let's stay
Right.
conservative in the lines. Like there's no reason to push it and then lose the credit and then lose out on like fines and penalties.
Yeah, it's good that you have that expertise to
Yeah,
add in there because I imagine if I'm a client, I'm thinking I'm already getting a couple 100,000. Like, is there more that I'm
yeah,
doing that would be a qualified reason to get the credit? So that's good. So you're using that really solid judgment too, and proactively upfront,
oh,
making sure the client understands. Like, let's just claim the qualified research and development activity and leave the rest for another discussion.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Because
that's
again,
great.
there is some gray area in R&D credit because there is some that's considered like up to judgment and
Yeah,
best like use case. So there is times where yes, the credit could be abused, and I think oftentimes CPA firms, they see that news story of some client, taking a credit that didn't qualify for, and then the IRS
right,
coming and taking it back, and unfortunately, I
right,
think that kind of scares them away.
right. Yeah. So let's talk about more value for the CPA firm. So outsourcing R&D not only allows them to offer a much needed and what would be a well received service to business clients, um, but also it's a new revenue stream. But beyond the revenue stream itself, you guys offer a referral bonus,
Yeah,
right? So can you
so
talk about that?
25% of our fees we send to the referring CPA every single year.
Is that high? Is that uncommon? Because that seems really generous.
Yeah, I mean, it's in like between we usually see like our competitors are in like the 15 to 20% range. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely like a market leader in that. And then even our fee structure at being the 15% of gross credit, that's a little smaller than kind of like some of the like the national R&D brands.
Okay, cool. So you offer a 25% referral bonus. And how does that work for CPAs in practical terms? Can you just, I'm sorry, explain it one
Yeah,
more time?
so essentially, if we bill your client $200,000, like we write you a check every year for $50,000 that they continue to do the R&D credit with us.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So then beyond the referral bonus, um, can you just give some examples? Have you seen firms that have seen an impact on client retention and cross-sell opportunities by partnering with you for the R&D credit work?
Yes, we've had a few firms that, especially the ones that, there's some that just specialize, let's say, in construction, or they,
Yeah.
specialize in, home remodeling, and, they already have the client base. They're already working with those clients. So then it's a natural addition to add the R&D credit. So then essentially, you know, the biggest thing is, every single small to medium firm, word of mouth is how you're going to get most of your clients. It's just how it
Right.
is. So doing
Yep.
something like, hey, we do the R&D credit. And again, our firm only does the R&D credit. So I think that's a lot of a misconception is people think, oh, I don't want to outsource because they're going to try to like, win the tax work. Like, no, like I'm the biggest cheerleader for my CPA firm partners. So
Yeah. Because you are a CPA, you know how it works.
yes, yes,
Yeah. So you're not gonna like step in somebody's
no,
backyard. You literally
absolutely
are
not.
there for outsourcing of the R&D credit and only that work.
Yeah, and I think, and that's why a lot of times, we have clients that go, "Hey, thank you for bringing this opportunity to me. Our CPA is retiring, or hey, we would like to change it up." Like, so we all oftentimes are referring work to the CPA for like the overall engagement.
So there's a lot of like cross referrals.
Yeah,
It goes
absolutely.
beyond just the one referral. Like it becomes a true partnership after a while.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, let's talk about getting started. For firms that are curious but cautious, and a lot of firms are cautious, you know, what's the lowest risk first step they can take with Insight R&D?
I mean, honestly, the easiest way is to just send me an email or give me a call and we just have a 30-minute chat about I want to learn a little bit more about your firm, about your clients, about your process, kind of your relationship with the R&D credit. Have you done it in the past? Did you have bad experience? Have you never, explored the area? Like just so I kind of understand like kind of what you need and then how we could like kind of align with your firm.
Yeah. So if a firm leader is watching this and thinking we probably have clients leaving R&D dollars on the table, and let's face it, so many firms are are in the niche model. So
Yep.
they are serving certain verticals, and a lot are construction, manufacturing, roofing, metal fab, any of your service-based businesses as well.
Hmm.
A lot of those verticals are the ones who qualify for the R&D credit. So I just imagine so many firms watching are gonna be like, oh, I've got a lot of
Yeah.
construction clients. It's really, really a good fit for them.
Yeah, and honestly, like for even some of our firm partners, just to again to like the whole bandwidth concerns is like honestly, I have some CPA firms where all they send me is just client name and website of hey, their top 75 clients, and then my team will do the due diligence just based on a website saying, hey, these are at least worth a conversation. I can't determine for sure if they qualify based on a website, but I at least can kind of like save you and the client time of hey, these 35, like these are probably worth exploring.
Yeah. So if we do have those firm leaders watching who think or thinking we're probably leaving R&D credits on the table, what should they do next? Is it just to email you?
Yeah,
Just
just
straight
just
out
just
email
just
you.
just shoot me an email and then we can jump on a call whenever they're available and then we can kind of go through the process and I can learn a little bit more about the firm.
Okay. And I will put your email in the show notes and in the post, but just for the record, tell them what your email is.
Yeah, so it's Jake at insightcredits.com. Yes.
So it is Jake, Jake, at insightcredits.com.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, you've heard everything. Now you know what it means to outsource R&D, what's on the table, the value to firms. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to Jake. You now have his email, and I thank you for watching.